Okie dokie. This is the one thing I don't like about StreamYard. I wish we could just have all this fucking. Here we go.
Welcome to the Johnny and Jimmy program. There we go.
Alrighty. We're going to have to get an official jingle for this show at some point. Something maybe a little more rock and roll than this. But good evening. If you are catching us live, good evening. If you're watching at all, thank you very much. And good evening, Johnny and Jimmy. Again, I just want to get right into this, Jim. So I've noticed on Instagram recently, the OnlyFans models, they're trying to get around the algorithm because it's gotten to the point now. Okay. The other day, I posted something. I forgot what exactly the comment was on Instagram, right? I think it was something like somebody was talking about how, and I really don't want to get into this, but they were talking about how like white men should pay more money for insurance. Let's just leave it at that, okay? I so don't want to get into this. But I made a remark that was not exactly my finest time. I deleted the post. I deleted the comment. I just unfollowed the page. I felt like, I'm going to not rage in comment sections anymore. I just can't afford to do it. Unless if it's someone I know personally. If it's on a private Facebook page and I'm dealing with a fucking blockhead, then you know what? Maybe I'll espouse an opinion. But I'm done with I'm done with hypothetical people getting under my skin anymore, because you never know when the ball's going to drop. You never know like what screenshot could get you. You never know what's going to get back to your boss these days, quite frankly, Jim. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I think that it's the healthiest way to go.
It depends. I'm a little more okay with the whole fucking just going off on people thing. I know what to say, not what to say, and I know what I do when I get into it with people on Facebook. If it gets back to my workplace, no one there's gonna give a shit.
Right? Yeah, but see, you also have the benefit of being. I don't want to say what industry you're in, but you are in an industry that is male dominated, and you also are in a pretty rural area, so perhaps dicking around with someone being a soy boy or whatever on Facebook is going to make your boss laugh more than anything. But I mean, like, this show, the things that we have said on this show, me saying that you have a lazy eye, or calling you the F word that rhymes with nag, as a joke, has gotten us flagged on this program. I am incapable of sending messages in groups for 30 days. The chat groups that I'm in, I cannot participate in for 30 days because of horseshit, just complete bullduggery that we get into on this show in front of like 5 people. Facebook is on my neck. But OnlyFans models can just show their entire pussy on Instagram anymore, and nothing happens to them. And this is what I wanted to get at, Jimmy, because it's almost like money laundering. It's almost like having a front, like like when a business, nobody comes in or comes out, but it's just there to cover the spread. Yeah. How many of these OnlyFans chicks are like, oh, look at me, I'm a dog walker. And meanwhile, like, their nipples are popping out. And when you click on their page, the link is like the first thing in their profile. But it says that they're an athlete, or I'm a fitness person, or whatever. And they're making so much money off of this shit. And it just seems like it's unfiltered. But yet, there's no algorithm to decipher jokes from legitimate statements, is my point.
Yeah, it's inconsistent. If you're trying to tote a more family friendly and clean thing, and since Instagram is also owned by Facebook, if it's inappropriate for you to call me the F slur, even though I can tell it's a joke and you're not telling me to do F word things. Meanwhile, like you said, a girl on Instagram can show her bare pussy and have that be that's just female empowerment. You know, nothing's
But
more
on
family.
Facebook, you'd be blocked because Facebook is family friendly and Instagram is for the boobs. Apparently,
Yeah,
that's
apparently,
what I can't figure out.
I guess to be, and Instagram has kind of been like that. It was the prototype of OnlyFans because that's where a lot of that shit started to flock and flourish. And then
Your
OnlyFans,
private Instagram accounts and things, right?
yeah, that shit. And then eventually
Private Snap stories. People have been making money off this
Yeah.
for years. Yeah, yeah. As Jim's over there fucking bare lipping a Canada Dry.
Yeah.
What a ladies' man.
I'll make the ladies anything but Canada Dry.
Well, well, you hear that, ladies. If you're single, there's 1 or 2 sips left in that bottle. He's willing to share. By the end of this program,
I'll be
tonight,
sipping something else afterwards.
Oh, but no, Jimmy, like for real. I am all for people. It's funny. People it's always funny to see like when we lose somebody, like when someone's in for a little bit, and they're like, okay, this is getting dumb, and I'll pop out.
Yeah.
It's always good. It's like immediate ratings. But the real crux of this, I think, Jimmy,
Yes.
I understand. Okay, and I am, a big freedom of speech person, what's parody and what's not and all of that. But I also recognize that there are people who are not doing things out of satire or out of parody or any form of comedy at all. And there are actual Klansmen groups on Facebook. There are actual white supremacist groups on Facebook. There are, potentially dangerous conspiracy theorist groups on Facebook. I'm well aware of that. And I'm not saying that, I think there's this weird argument, and this is why I really don't like the quote unquote rightist point of view with this, because there's this weird point of view where all the fake news is coming from the left or coming from the right, or the hate's coming from the left or coming from the right. I don't believe that. I don't think most people are left or right. I think people are people. And when people begin to have a collective mindset and a school of thought begins being pondered by a lot of different people, especially those with foul intentions, okay, that's how this sort of malcontentment begins. I don't think it has to do with anybody being Republican or being Democrat or any of that bullshit. I just don't. And the quicker that we stop making it a party issue and we just make it an issue of not even really how we spread information, but just how we view each other as a culture, okay, it's going to be a harsh reality, but I don't think an algorithm is going to be able to determine this, is my point.
No, and I agree. Also, it's harder to have intellectual discussion if I disagree with left-leaning points. Like there's a guy that I disagreed with when it came to the whole Luigi thing, and I got called a right-wing chud, and it's like that, like there's like that's all that you got. You're calling me something that I'm not. It's like if you think someone disagrees with you and you're left-leaning, you have to lean right. Or if I disagree with someone who's right-leaning, they just presume, well, you just lean left. It's like no, it's
you said this before. You're not a Republican. You're not registered either way, are you?
No, and I haven't voted, so there's no. You have you have nothing to indicate that I am a part of that I'm left or right leaning. The only thing I've said on this program that I'm right leaning when it comes to is my economic policies. That's all I've ever said where I've had any position to where I lean in any given direction. And beyond that, no, there's no way you can indicate that. It's like saying if you are a part of the rainbow mafia, as people like to call it, that automatically makes you like an ally. But then you have people, some of the people in that group who say some pretty disgusting things against people in that group. And it's just like, well, I'm friends with a trans person, so I can actually be transphobic. And it's just like, my thing is like, I don't have to be a part of any said group to be a decent person. And just because I agree with your left-leaning policies, no, doesn't make me a right-wing chud. It doesn't make me a Trumper or whatever the fuck you got. I can just be another person from the outside looking in saying, I don't agree. Here's why. You do with that whatever you see fit. And if your response is, well, you're just a chud and you probably watch a hentai, it's just like, stop. My point is that I understand discussion isn't going to be perfect. You're going to always have people who act like fucks, but I think, if and who knows, with the culture shifting that might happen, I don't know what's going to take place in about 15 days, but I know that if discussion on certain instances are going to be better, you need to stop calling people bootlickers, chuds, and all this other stuff. It's like I'm running the social experiment right now, and turns out some people on the left do not like being called soy boys, and they're like, "Well, you're just calling me this because I'm left leaning." And it's just like you have that same energy when you call someone on the right a Nazi, but you can't handle being called a soy boy, and you acknowledge why me calling you that based on some characteristics you might have that aren't entirely true. You didn't like that characterization, but yet you're in a camp of people who call people Nazis without any
Right.
provocation.
And
you know
I think there are a lot of people who supported Kamala Harris as the Democratic presidential nominee that were not even on, they don't spend that much time on social media. They're
no
not religiously on Facebook. They're not the typical Kamala supporter. And, in this kind of caricature of this overly obnoxious fat woman, and then the typical Trump supporter. A lot of people that I know that may or may not have voted for Trump or have conservative sensibilities. They aren't some inbred hillbilly that dropped out in the 10th grade or whatever either. So there's a lot of vitriol that comes across. And again, like I've said this before, okay, we do need to weed out those who are truly racist, who are truly hateful, who are truly calling for violence, who are truly calling for, some true division. But when someone has a critique, a criticism, or a disagreement, they should not immediately fall into that category.
no
That's what has happened in Canada. And as we can see by all conceivable measures, the outcomes have not been so great.
no
But again, okay, uh, I certainly understand, and this will upset people too. I certainly understand why people don't vote. And as me, for someone who has voted, I have voted for different parties for different things. Um, I know that there are some guests that we would like to potentially have that are big Kamala supporters, and that's great. And I don't know what the next 4 years is going to bring. I don't want to focus on politics anymore. I would like to just focus on conversation and figure out what the disagreement is, what the problem is, and what the solution is. And to me, the solution isn't saying because of the Republicans, blah, 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 and because of the Democrats, blah, blah, blah. The only true Republican, the only true Democrat that really is, and I might get flack for saying this, but this is how I feel. The only true Republicans and Democrats are the ones that are fucking paid to be. If you're not a congressman, if you're not a governor, if you're not a representative, if you're not on any level of government, you're just another fucking person who has an opinion. It doesn't have to be this fucking, I'm going to be 1,000% this way or 1,000% that way.
I also think that there should be more people who should be statesmen rather than politicians, Like,
Oh, yeah.
for as much shit as I give Jesse Ventura didn't want to make a career out of politics. He was governor for 4 years, and then he just decided after that, he was done with that. And I believe the guy that ran after him ran for that long too. And people were asking him, what's next, the Senate? And he said, no, I'm going home. And I think, that's like when people ask me if I'd ever run for like some office, and I'd be like, I'd run for a singular term, fix what I felt needed to be fixed, and then just be done with it. Like,
right. And it's also, the whole career politician thing too. And it's not even a lot of times the senators, I question. There is something that I do. I really do question.
yes.
Why is it though that and just getting off of politics altogether? Okay,
Yes.
because we could get into the whole discussion with the senators and how long they hang around for, but truly the reason that I say it needs to be apolitical is because most politicians are not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about corporate interests. They're not thinking about you. Real people think about the problems that we face all the time. We hear it regurgitated by the talking heads on TV, and never does it really feel legitimate. You know what? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
I
in
guess.
this, okay, so like in the sense of like even discussing censorship. Okay. Something that we could get into here in a little bit. 17 states, including the state of Nebraska, will have a Pornhub bans to some extent or another, starting probably now in January. I think that this is a conversation that is going to be controversial for a lot of people, but I don't necessarily know if it's as political as people like to make it out to be. In
I
the
think
sense of what?
I think it would have, yeah, instead of making that a political thing, I think you would make that a cultural thing. Is it beneficial for the culture that, um, that the P word, or at least certain sites, are being banned in, certain countries, or in certain states here, for example? And is that okay? Like, is that permissible? On one hand, censorship isn't good, but on the other hand, do you actually have what are the studies about the psychological effects that shit has on people who are addicted to it, so on and so forth? Yeah, if a politician tries to get in the midst of it, they're not doing that because they actually care about the issue. That they're doing it to advance their career, and they're probably going to go home and bust it out anyway. So who gives a
Right.
shit?
So this bill, okay, known as the Online Age Verification Liability Act, which is also being known as the OAVLA.
Yeah.
It requires that commercial entities use reasonable age verification methods when publishing and distributing material that is harmful to minors on a website with substantial portion of such material. So now, due to that, I don't know if you have tried this, Jimmy. I don't know if you want to go ahead and try this right now in a second tab. Actually, do so. You have a Nebraska IPA. See if you could. I mean, Nebraska IPA. You have a Nebraska IP. Yeah, an IPA, an IP address. Go ahead and just try to go to the website. See if it lets you. See if it makes you do your age or anything.
All right.
Because apparently it makes it effectively inaccessible in the state. And the legislative change has raised concerns about free speech and privacy amongst many users. This is from Cyber News. And then, of course, it starts advertising like NordVPN and those sorts of things.
Yeah, I was about to say that too. The other argument that I'm going to make is this restriction feels similar to gun control. Maybe if you don't know the thing is that anybody can access a
So, can you access it, or does it not let you?
no, I'm just saying that anybody can access get a VPN.
Oh
But
yeah,
let
and
me
it's already showing here. You can in Nebraska, you can VPNs are without restriction.
Yep.
The Nebraska porn law is a part of a broader trend in which 19 states, okay, Texas was the most recent, have implemented some form of online age restriction for adult content. Which, for instance, in
Yep.
Texas,
All right. So there's a thing I'm going to read here that just popped up
okay,
with a video. It says, "Dear user, as you may know, your elected officials in Nebraska are requiring us to verify your age before allowing you access to our website. While safety and compliance are at the forefront of our mission, giving your ID card every time you want to visit an adult platform is not the most effective solution for protecting our users, and in fact will put children and your privacy at risk. In addition, mandating age verification without proper enforcement gives the platform the opportunity to choose whether or not to comply. As we've seen in other states, this just drives traffic to sites with far fewer safety measures in place. Very few sites are able to compare to our robust trust and safety measures we currently have in place to protect children and user privacy. Any legislation must be formed against all platforms offering adult content. The safety of our users is one of the biggest concerns. We believe the best and most effective solution for protecting children and adults alike is to use ID user is to identify users by their device and allow access to age restricted materials and websites based on that identification. Until a real solution is offered, we have made the difficult decision to completely disable access to our website in Nebraska. Please contact your representative before it's too late and demand device-based verification solution that makes the internet safer, also respecting your privacy. And then
so
model or there's a model or content partner access. Pornhub is rated with RTA label. Parents, you can easily block access to the site. Please read this page for more information. And that's all.
okay, so Pornhub is inaccessible. What will you ever do?
Oh
Is
no.
what I
Uh,
want to find out now for just a giggles? What else is inaccessible? Is
that's
it's
the
probably all
only
inaccessible. What?
that's the only one I heard was inaccessible. Was all that I
I don't think some of these other sites are like really corporate. Like I think Pornhub is the McDonald's,
Yeah, but
right?
here's the argument we're gonna make though. I mean, can't can't people who are like especially content creators take all their content from Pornhub and just port it to another site? I mean,
Well, there used to be a page called the Nebraska Coeds. I wonder what they're up to these days.
but that's my point though. Like this is the point
Yeah.
is I don't think the ban or the restriction is going to have the effect people think it does. I'm not saying you shouldn't address porn in any capacity. It's just that I don't think banning it is going to work in the way that people think. Because if there isn't digital media, what's next? Are you going to ban Playboy from entering certain states either? It's just like the question is where do
Yeah,
you
well,
where
I think that's already a thing, Jimmy. I know this might sound a little silly, but as a kid, you remember going into the gas stations and seeing the nude magazines, and they would always have like it would always be like a big piece of stock paper covering the front cover.
yeah.
I don't even think those are in gas stations anymore. I haven't seen a magazine stand in years.
You and I
So certainly there are things that have went away. in in hordes, and porn's just going to be the next thing.
Ugh. No, I'm just saying that I don't know if this is going to be as an effective a measure as people think. I'm not opposed to them cracking down on stuff, but it's just, and like I said too, with VPNs and all that other stuff, and VPNs can do a lot more for just than just the porn stuff. It's just good for protecting your IP or personal information. If certain content is region blocked, you get to access content worldwide. Like if there are shows that, for example, if I have Hulu, if there are shows on Hulu that are only accessible in like Europe, if I have a VPN, I can now access those shows off of.
What's the first state to illegalize the usage of VPNs, Jim? How long until this whole thing with VPNs, it's not a secret anymore. It used to be a secret in the tech community, and then a bunch of podcasts began getting the advertisement, and then it went out to YouTuber. Everybody knows about this shit now.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think banning VPNs would go over very well, because with how bad with how easy it is, to have your information stolen or have these companies like data mine your shit and all this other stuff. If the government attempted to ban that, I would ask them why. What is your end game? Are you telling me the only reason why you want to ban a VPN is because of porn? No, I'm sorry. Like, I would have to think there's something more to it than that because of.
And there was a criticism, I think it was back in 2019 now, if you remember, when there was a huge raid over at Pornhub, with the allegations being that CP was being unknowingly uploaded, and like teenager content and all this like really really illegal shit.
Yeah.
And there was a purge. The company shut their entire site down for several weeks, took care of all of the problems, put out a big press release over it. It was Phil DeFranco did a story on it. It was a big thing that happened right before the pandemic. So if this is about saying, well, kids are going to get a hold of pornographic material, it's going to teach young men, and look, and I already know this is from the conservative point of view. I'm not mocking it. No. I'm just laying it out there for people that, just to understand. The concept is that porn, before you realize the fantasy of it all, before you realize how fictitious and how, what a bunch of horseshit it really is, you begin to get these thoughts of how romance works and how sex works and how, how big a girl's boobies should be and how big a girl's butt should be and what she should do to you and what you should do to her and how you should be enjoying yourselves. And it really creates this dangerous point of view of how dating and relationships and sex and honestly, just interactions with the opposite sex is going to go for you, because porn isn't about, oh, let me go to the movies with my boyfriend and give him a kiss. No, it's, you're fucking the guy that's mowing your lawn or whatever. And it's just so not real life that these kids see this and then they explore these things and bad things happen. And you remember, Jimmy, this was probably about maybe 10 years ago now. Remember the whole issue up in Rapid City? All the high school girls had to get, they were getting anal fissures because they were having unprotected, anal sex because they believe that, doing it the old-fashioned way, they were keeping themselves for marriage, but the loophole was, and yeah, and there was no education there either. Because, and I have to imagine a state like South Dakota has very little in terms of sex education and reproductive health. So you have to have one or the other. And I'm not saying that Nebraska does not have good education. Nebraska is ranked surprisingly high in terms of education.
Yeah.
But I don't see how Pornhub I agree with you. I don't see how this is going to do anything. And I don't know, Jimmy. Um, what do you think about this? Well, what do you think? If looking out for the high school kids, what do you think this is going to change their approach, if at all?
I mean, look, if you like, if you want, I don't want the government getting involved in it. If this is about protecting kids from this shit, you need to have the parents do that. The parents need to do the parenting. When the government has to step in and be the big daddy, it's a problem. You're effectively saying, "Don't worry, you don't have to, tell your kids why to avoid this stuff and the material here and the discussions that come with it. We'll take care of it and just ban it outright in states that do that." And
Yeah, and you can have child safety locks on phones, you can have child safety locks on laptops and tablets and things. And I understand. It's almost like saying, okay, when I was a kid, my mom did not let me play rated M games. Okay, that was a big thing. I wanted to play Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty and all these games, but my mother, until I was about 15 or 16, she would not let me have copies of those. That did not mean when I was at my friends' houses, I was not playing Vice City many years before she wanted me to, that I was not playing, Mortal Kombat. Um, I listened to a lot of Christian rock and a lot of clean rock, a lot of contemporary music that my mother approved of. That doesn't mean that by the time I got to high school, I hadn't discovered rap music and death metal, and I hadn't seen dirty movies and the things that she didn't want me seeing. I eventually saw elsewhere. So I understand the concept of saying, well, in this household, we don't have potty mouths, we don't make dirty jokes, we don't talk about anything remotely sexual, especially in front of the kids, and we make it very clear that porn is off the table in this house. Great, great. You can lay down the law all you want, but when you can open up this little thing called Instagram and you have chicks that are just bouncing their butt cheeks around as they're, washing their car or anything. There's softcore porn everywhere. So I'm really not sure what banning Pornhub when you still have, and I'm not gonna give
list
any
all the other
advice
sites and
associated.
alternatives. Yeah,
Right.
no, like it's just.
Right now, Jimmy, without saying it out loud, you can think of 5 alternative sites,
I was
right?
thinking I've already thought of 7.
Oh,
Which is,
Jimmy knows. Here's the thing: Jimmy is not going to let any of his girlfriends be without him. Okay, he's going to make sure he can still see Scarlet Meadows. He's going to make sure he can still see, who is that one chick? Fucking Courtney Scott. All of the favorites from back in the day. Jim is going to have access to.
my I guess the other way to put it is there should be a thing called proper exposure. Obviously, you don't want to show your kids you don't want to unveil it all at once because you're going to psychologically damage and fuck a kid up. But at the same exact time, sheltering them from everything. And then when they go out into the real world, they get exposed to it all at once. And it's like a massive culture shock. They don't know how to absorb it all. It's going to have pretty rough effects too. You need to have a proper middle ground. On one hand, yeah, like I said, don't unveil everything. But at the same exact time, don't just be like, oh my God, little Timmy, cover your eyes. Like, it's just.
Well, no. See, that's where, okay, I'll be very honest with you. I think there are some things that children shouldn't see
Yes,
and children shouldn't be doing.
of course.
And, these days, Jimmy, when I see children, I see children calling their parents by their first names. I see children cussing. I see children,
We're
just
giving.
acting in ways and consuming materials that are way beyond their years. And I genuinely do believe that there are children centric activities and there are adult centric activities.
Yeah.
And if you don't want if you don't want your children near guns, keep the guns in the safe.
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't want them, like we've already said this before, turn the channel, what have you. But what were you going to say? My bad.
No, and I agree with that. Like, there are things that I would never tell an 8-year-old that I would be more comfortable with telling like a 16-year-old. Like, I know there's distinctions. Like, anything sexual should stay away from kids. And I'm not gonna like that's something I'm not moving off of. I don't care about any of that. But what I'm saying is that there has to be moderation. You have to, with certain topics, you need to wait obviously till they get into a certain age, but it's just the whole, and I'm saying this as a generalization, not just the Pornhub thing, because the argument I'm making is that if something is this bad in the public and we're really this concerned about the safety of children, why is the government making this decision? Why can't parents just make that decision? And sure, there are some parents who are okay with this ban, and it's just like, okay, ban it in your house. For example, I know people are gonna laugh and clown on me, but I'm 29. I live by myself. What kids are at harm from what I do here? It's, you know what I mean?
Right. And also, too, by the way, okay, Jimmy, I guess Pornhub's a Canadian company. I didn't
Of
know
course.
that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Jim Pillin, I believe. I don't know. This guy got elected after I left the state. And this is what it says, okay? To the news that one of the world's busiest porn traffickers will be shut down in Nebraska, I say good riddance. I was proud to sign LB 1092 into law, and I am grateful for Senator Dave Merman's leadership on this issue. This is a great development to protect our kids, our culture, and our values. Our kids already face too many threats from big tech and obscene content industry. Having one fewer outlet sexualize their childhoods is a good thing for Nebraska. Look, Governor Pilon, listen. You're not going to see this, but I look from the bottom of my heart. I get what you're talking about, but this isn't going to do anything. It's just not going to do anything. Okay, we have a lot of issues right now in terms of AI with CP and all of these other awful things that are going on. We have kids being molested in schools, kids being molested in churches, and that is not to say anything against either one of those institutions. I'm just making a point.
Yeah.
We have Native American children in Nebraska that are disappearing. I sincerely don't think, and that fucking goofball Kristi Noem's going to hop on this next. So this is more for her. Okay. I sincerely do not believe that telling an adult that they can't look at a naked adult who is willingly and probably making a lot of money to have her nakedness up there for any slob to see in some, whether it be in his downtown apartment in Lincoln or in his fucking dilapidated barn in Ord, some goddamn where. I don't see how that's a problem. I just don't. I don't see it.
And my other thing is now that you've done this, are we going to play the game of all of it's off the table now, or are you going to make concessions? And if you make, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the lawmakers who are like, yeah, good. I'm glad Pornhub is gone. It's just like, okay, are you going to go for every other site?
Well,
are you going to
slippery slope?
That's the problem.
You know how many strip clubs are in the state of Nebraska? You know how many fully nude strip clubs are right over the state line in Wyoming and places? I just don't get what the point of this is. I don't understand it.
I understood what the point was. It's no different than trying to issue firearms bans and stuff like that. It's not doing what you think it's doing. I'm not saying you can't have a discussion about it. And obviously you don't want children seeing that shit. But it's not going to. And the other argument is that you're concerned about that. Yet when I was a kid, when I was 8, the most advanced piece of technology I held in my hand was a Game Boy Advance SP. Kids nowadays are holding state of the art phones to where you could connect with some Nigerian prince and Lagos or something like that, telling you that they're like an FBI diplomat with 2.5 billion consignment
But
gold
Jim,
box.
let me ask you something though.
Yes.
Let me be honest, okay?
Yes.
The first time you realized that you could Google boobies, how did it make you feel?
Oh, it was great.
Exactly. That's the point. Okay. This all
Oh, of
comes back
course.
to this. Okay. Look, if
And
I'm
you know what?
13,
Here's the other
if I'm
thing.
13 and I'm on the phone and my mother and I hand the phone to my mom and she figures out, oh, you're talking to some guy in Ethiopia, get off the phone, then fine. My mother will then step in and take care of that. But she's not stepping in, as I was, surreptitiously Googling this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my point is that we're gonna play this angle of protecting our children. Okay, are you gonna? When's the ban for kids under the age of like 10 or the underage of 13 owning a smartphone? Where like if this is like that's the other thing. If we're gonna play
Right.
this banning this idea that you have to nerf the world to make it safer, it just doesn't work like that. I think there should be proper measures put into place, but it's just like you ban this site, you better ban the next, better ban OnlyFans, better go after Mark Zuckerberg and
Well,
ask him
here's
why
the
is it okay
thing.
for women to post pictures with their bare puss on there, but on Facebook, if you call your co-host in a podcast the F word and they clearly laugh because it's a joke, that's unacceptable. It's just like I
This
like
is this is the crazy thing, okay? And I'm going to call Nebraska out on this. And I'm saying this as a place that look, I'm all about protecting children. I'm happy Nebraska wants to protect children. I could have children in Nebraska. Very fucking, likely. Okay, if we come back, that would happen. I want to know. And again, look, I'm not necessarily. Look, I agree. There's a lot of grown men that shouldn't be watching so much porn either. Okay, I understand that if you want to get a conversation going about how these materials make you depressed, how they make you anxious, how they make you feel insecure, how they affect your dating life, your actual love life, how they prevent you from, finding a woman and getting married and having kids and getting over this lump, and also addressing how many married men are fucking whacking off to the shit too. There's a lot of layers here. But why is it that under Nebraska's Clean Indoor Air Act, okay, they're so concerned about the bars not allowing smoking, okay, and now you can now get tobacco license for bars, which is how I think you're allowed to vape in like some of the, we're not going to say what bar, but there is a bar in Chattern. If you lit a
of
cigarette
course.
up, nobody's going to fucking kick you out.
Of course.
We're not going to say the name because Jimbo happens to do business there.
Yeah. And I would like
but
doing business at that establishment.
right, yeah, he's a hit. So the point is that Nebraska doesn't allow you to smoke inside of public spaces. You can't smoke in commercial vehicles. You can't smoke at bus stops. You can't smoke on buses. You can't smoke there is nowhere in Memorial Stadium that you can smoke. You can't smoke on the fucking balconies or very much of anywhere. I think you can have an e-cigarette. I believe. I under the rules may have changed. I don't know. The point being is, you can still legally smoke a cigarette with the window up with children in the car in Nebraska. That was not a part of the Clean Air Act.
Yeah.
Okay. Things like that. So they made sure that you can't smoke inside. They finalized this Nebraska Clean Air Act. I believe when I was in college, if you remember,
Yes.
they just passed this. This is one of the last states to fucking figure their shit out all fully. and you are still allowed to smoke cigarettes inside the cars with children, inside houses with children. You are allowed to go to the liquor store with children. So I just don't understand. Children can be in bars until 9 o'clock at night, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Children shouldn't be in a bar at all, and they can be. I've seen them there.
The amount of children I've seen in a bar here in town that I will not name, but yet we're going to have legislators saying we have to protect them from the P word sites, which fine is
Which is
fair.
only one site out of the bazillion.
Yeah, out of the bazillion, but I'm just trying to get into this person's headspace here. You and I both know what crazy shit's happening to a bar, especially in the town I live in
Oh,
alone.
especially
You and I both know.
small town bars.
Yeah,
Wild.
are
shit.
insane.
And again, no children are present. See, this is what I want people to understand, okay? I am in full advocacy. Be as fucking wild when you're young, have a little recklessness to you. Jimmy and I have witnessed both together and independently some bonkers stuff. No kids have been involved ever. Okay. So that's the point that I'm trying to get at is we need to overcorrect other things. Okay. You can have a cigarette in the car with a kid. But look, okay, you want to take your kid hunting, you want to teach your kid proper gun ownership and gun safety at a young age, fine. But if we are going to allow a 10-year-old to hold a hunting rifle, you can allow a grown man to watch pornography.
Yeah.
And look, Pornhub, maybe he feels that Pornhub is the biggest thorn in his side in terms of cleaning up the values and cleaning up the beliefs and cleaning up the familial structure in Nebraska. I think it's doing it on its own. Okay, what Nebraska already has, whether they be Democrat or Republican, Nebraska has a lot of Catholics, a lot of Christians, a lot of people who might be non-denominational but be spiritual. There's also a lot of atheism, but that's everywhere you go. But even those people are not the gung-ho radicals. A lot of them are just apolitical, living their, mundane small town life.
Yeah.
So I don't really know who this speaks to, except for the smallest denominator. And I'm saying this as someone who I promote Catholicism. I come here. I say that I am a Catholic. Okay. I know the pros and cons of putting forth any one denomination or any one religion. That's why I don't advocate for things like this. Because I know he's saying that he wants to restore Christian values in Nebraska. You can do that. You can invite a Christian themed presence in your state, while also being inclusive to those that just don't care, or people like me who really don't see it as a threat. What grown adults are involving themselves in.
Yeah.
Okay, banning porn isn't going to prevent someone from cheating on their wife. It's not going to prevent a 14-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl running into the woods and playing doctor, as they say. Okay, it's not going to prevent any of this. And when it's one site, I will pose this to you, since we ended up talking the whole fucking evening about this because it's got me so fucking bonkers. Yeah. How many young gals in Nebraska do you think have OF accounts?
I can confirm there's at least 5 locally.
Well, we will have to discuss that off air. But so 5 locally. Okay, in your little town, 5 locally. What is there, about 2 million in the state? People. So you mean to tell me what are they going to do? Are they going to start zip code banning OF too?
Well, no. You see, in order to restore specific values, you have to
Jimmy, that was a
ban.
joke. You didn't laugh, but I wasn't going to consult you off the air. I was only fucking with you.
I got that. No, you have to ban OnlyFans. It's the only way to fix that problem.
You know, I hate to say this. I would almost be I would almost be in favor of that. I mean, I don't really care what adults do, and I look and I understand that we are in a time where people need to make money. Okay, school teachers are on there because they're not making any fucking money, not in this economy. But I don't know if we should be advocating that the only way to sustain yourself is to take your clothes off. That just seems like a bad virtue.
Yeah, but I also think that you should argue, like, and I can't believe I'm sort of playing this defense. It's just, if you shut down the platform, which I wouldn't be opposed to it either, but I already know the consequence that comes from that is they're either going to flock to Instagram in droves, or you're going to get another blue sky situation where another platform is going to be created that is a sort of home for that.
What if it was like Nebraska based? What if like what if like some dude in his basement somewhere just started compiling, like he stole shit off of, nah, that's too far fetched.
I mean, it's possible someone could do that.
Everybody has a VPN like that.
Well,
Well,
it's just like the Ashley Madison shit. It's possible. So, like, that's the other thing people need to be aware of. No matter how secure you think a site or a platform is, it is possible for it to get hacked and to, completely wreck people's lives. Because I bet you there are people who do OnlyFans who either their significant other knows, which fine, it's a consenting thing. But I bet you there's good money that there's a good chunk of people who do that whose significant other doesn't know.
Oh, 100%. And that's
they
the other thing too. Like anything, okay, like alcohol, like marijuana, even like fast food, okay, you can abuse it. You can be addicted to it. Porn is much like alcohol. You can be addicted to it. It can become to a point where you begin to over sexualize everything in your life. You begin to alienate and don't even want to have real life relationships because you are more attracted to the simulated action that's happening on a screen as opposed to anything else. So I 100% agree with that. It can be a deterrent of marriages. It can be a big problem. But I don't know if addressing it like this is going to be so helpful.
No,
I just don't know.
I don't think so.
But the other thing too,
yes,
is that if we begin banning, okay, I understand that you want to keep children, you don't want them to be overly sexualized. And there is becoming an issue, and I think it's much more of an issue of of Instagram and these other platforms and Pornhub, quite frankly. I think it's an issue that we don't have an age restriction on social media. Maybe 16 is when you're allowed to get on Instagram. Okay, maybe we'll have that conversation. Maybe you don't need a fucking iPhone when you're in 5th grade. I agree with you there too, Jimmy. Maybe there needs to be some parental fucking guidance.
And let the parents decide that. I don't want the government deciding that for people. You know what I mean? If for example, if a parent buys their 14-year-old kid a phone, they explain to them, we don't go on these sites, stay away from these places, don't do it, so on and so forth. Here's the apps and the sites you can go on, and so on and so forth. And at that point it's fine. But if I just hand my 10-year-old like a phone that has that much power, and it has the power to get that kind of information, they can look up whatever they want, and I don't tell them what they can and cannot do with it, and I just let them run wild with it. It's just like, why should the government get involved at that point? Why should someone else suffer for my inability to say to my child, hey, stay off these sites, or, maybe 10's a little too young. Maybe I wait 4 to 5 years before I get them something that
Right. And,
technologically advanced.
it's something about porn. It's something about the act of watching two naked human beings, at large with one another. That just it attracts so many people. We joked on here a couple of weeks ago, maybe longer than that ago now, about how the North Koreans were being sent to Russia to fight in the war, and meanwhile they're just hanging out at the hotel. They're watching porn. They are
Some of them
completely
ended up
falling into
and some of them ended up fleeing that.
yeah.
You see, I would say in that instance, I'm not saying it was probably the porn alone that did that, but they probably saw that and other shit, and they saw that. That's the argument I can make for being too sheltered. They saw what the world really had to offer based on what they were told, given, and how to live their lives. And that's what happens. Like, I knew a kid in high school who was sheltered for all 4 years of high school, and then he goes to college for his like freshman year, and it's the most insane shit. He said it was one of the most intense years of his life because everything came at him all at once. Because the stuff that you generally experience in high school, he didn't experience until he was like 19. Meanwhile, there's crazy shit I experienced at like 16. He's not getting a taste of until 19.
Of course.
It's just
And
like,
I also think that in the North Koreans' perspective is with Russia. Okay, I don't know how much they know about the world. I don't know how much of Europe they are aware of, and how they're educated. But he would have to think to himself, okay, if people have the free will to have sex with each other, I don't know what the laws are in North Korea. I don't know how that works.
me neither.
But but I have to imagine if he thinks people have the freedom to do this and film it and do it in abundance, what else do I have the freedom to also do in abundance?
What else does life have to offer?
Right, exactly. And you're gonna hop on that train and you're gonna just fly across Europe. So I see all sides of this.
Of course.
And I think it was fun to have this talk tonight. We might have to tie a little early just because I don't know. Actually, we can go for a little while longer. But yeah, that's just the thing of it. People are going to do what they're going to do. I don't think that OnlyFans or any of these other things are going to be affected next. If they are, then the conversation will be had, and it's in 19 states now. I have a feeling this thing is going to grow and grow and grow, and Pornhub might be out of here.
Yeah.
And if it is, I mean, it's no big fucking loss, quite frankly.
No, but I as we both said, the point still stands that even if you get rid of that, congratulations, you've you've slayed one beast, and you have like a million beasts to slay left.
Right, and also, again, it's something else where is Pornhub actually marketed to teenagers? Does it attract teen? I mean, yes, horniness, to put it, crudely, is going to naturally develop in a child anyway. The chances of this ban, we've already said this, it's not really going to do much. But I think a big question that should be had is, what else are we now going to do? Okay, now that this ban is in place, if it's all about kids, are we now going to determine which music can be played in the state?
Yeah.
We now determine which movies can be, how far are we going to go? When you have high schoolers listening to Sexy Red talking about how her pussy is pink and her booty hole is brown, that's actual lyrics, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I think we've actually read the lyrics of that fucking song on this show. It's
Yeah.
horrendous. Unfortunately, I made you sit through that, if you recall.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What would you do? Do you think this is the same thing about ban the violent video games? Is that
Yep, it's the same argument. It's exactly the same thing because, you know, for one, in that case, yet again, who like? There's no way little Timmy goes into a GameStop and buys Grand Theft Auto San Andreas by himself. He needs an adult or a guardian to do that. Now, my mom let me play those games when I was a kid, and who turns out none of them had any crazy effects on me. Turns out that as I got older, I realized that, yeah, in Grand Theft Auto, where that's acceptable to steal cars and do all that crazy shit, in real life, I can't input a cheat after I steal a car that makes me less wanted. The cops are still going to bust me. It turns out that fantasy and reality are kept separate, and that, you know, banning that shit isn't going to fix it. And on top of that, if you know, it's kind of like
you remember how many parents were in uproar about the hot coffee thing
with McDonald's? Yeah.
No, with the hot coffee Grand Theft Auto cheat.
Oh yeah. Yeah. My thing is that, and even if they banned it for kids, what's to say that I can't pay some adult that I know the money for it, kick them a little extra to get me that game? It's like there's a reason why that shit doesn't work, because when there's a will and there's a way. And how do they know that they're not? And the other thing is with the ban, how do you know if some adult goes in there and buys that game? All they have to do is say that they're buying it for themselves. They don't have to tell the clerk or the salesperson they're buying it for their kid. It's the same. It's the same argument with all of these bans. There's no way that you can read someone's mind or preemptively know that they're going to do that. And I don't think the government should be that decider. It should be up to the parents, you know?
And also, you know, again, not to go there, but there are small towns, kind of like the one that you still live in Nebraska.
Yes.
Where I guarantee you there has been like a 14-year-old girl that has married a 20-year-old guy because of pregnancy or whatever. Like, we've all heard stories of that shit.
Of course.
So if we're really thinking about protecting children, there are so many laws that could be patched up long before we start worrying about this. But, you know, I think for tonight, you know, a single subject really wasn't a bad way to go.
No.
But for now, I think we will tap on out, guys. So thank you for hanging in if you have.
Take it easy.